Welcome back, everybody. Today I have 5 great strategy games for beginners. The whole point of this video is that I am trying to turn beginners, people who are apprehensive about the genre, whatever your situation is, into fans of it. Why? Because the strategy genre is one of my favorites. I did puzzle games back in April, same situation back then. Puzzle games, strategy games, and more to come are some of my favorite genres, and I feel like people don't necessarily understand the variety of subgenres. So today, I've got a taste of real-time strategy, turn-based strategy, a little tower defense, and more. You'll see from the selections. I hope you'll enjoy them. The whole idea is that these games are easy enough to get into, but also they should be easy enough for you to complete the games, so you can pat yourself on the back when you've cleared these. All right, let's get into it with game number 1, Demolition Inc. Demolition Inc. is exactly what it sounds like. In this game, you are tasked with causing as much mayhem and destruction in as short amount of time as possible. Usually anyways. 300 seconds is pretty generous for completing these levels. Basically, imagine yourself as an alien crane operator, and this urban landscape is your playground. You've got a variety of tools at your disposal: exploding cows, which can set off chain reactions, put them near some buildings, and maybe chain a few together to go out into traffic. And when a car hits a cow, don't worry, it's not gory. It sets off the explosions, and that brings the building down. Maybe use an oil slick, and that sends a car skidding out of control. Or, similarly, a puddle of goo. If you put that under the right tires of a car, it veers hard to the right side of the road. That could be launched into some kind of oil canister or gas canister, and that sets off an explosion. It's a lot of fun messing around with these different type of puzzle landscapes, we'll call them, using the tools at your disposal, and finding your favorite way to complete these objectives. Personally, when I play the game, I like using the remote control option for the cars. I find it's fun having that change in perspective, and I can really pinpoint what area of the map exactly I want to destroy. Maybe I know that a building, a tall skyscraper, has a certain weak point, or maybe one of its sides is blown out, but it still hasn't come down, so I need to control the car and send it into that building from the other side. I will admit this game has a little bit of jank. Sometimes when you're playing it, it happens to crash. When I played it years ago and then tried to resume it not too long ago, I saw that my save had disappeared, so just be warned. I do think, however, despite some of those game-breaking issues, the game's still a lot of fun. If you're going to play on PC, back up your save. Hey, not a big deal to do that, right? And this should be a great introduction for people into, I don't even know what kind of strategy game this is. I just know that a lot of people can have a lot of fun with this title. The next game on this list is a classic, Plants vs. Zombies Game of the Year Edition. Now, does that matter, Game of the Year Edition? I'm not sure. That's just what I've had on Steam for at least the past decade. That's what I've played through twice, and I've had a lot of fun going back to certain missions, doing some of the endless modes at the end of the game. This is a really unique twist on tower defense. It's played in this grid format, kind of like a chessboard, and on this grid, you're going to be fending off hordes of zombies. The goal is to not let them reach your house. And so you plant these different plants on the lawn, the zombies march in, and depending on what you put down, little pea shooters for some automatic fire, maybe you've got a carnivorous plant that eats a zombie as it approaches. You get to decide how best to play the level. You can change your plants in and out. Maybe you've got some favorites. You like using the walnuts to act as barriers. Maybe you are a fast player and you don't have any need for walnuts. You're just that good at the game already. So you can set those aside and you can take the potato mines, or you can take the hot peppers, and those nuke the zombies along a line on the grid. There's also an interesting money managing aspect here, and a lot of strategy games have something like this, where you have to manage your resources. In Plants vs. Zombies, you use the sunflowers to generate coins. Plant more sunflowers, you get more money. You have more money, you get to plant more plants. So it is in your best interest to find that right balance of how many sunflowers can I actually put on my lawn before I need to set up defenses to fend off the zombies. That's for you to figure out. Don't worry if you lose a couple times, because the game could surprise you as a beginner. It's okay. It's fun redoing levels, and part of the joy of strategy games is learning from your mistakes and learning how you can improve. So Plants vs. Zombies, join everybody who's enjoyed this game before you. It's a great time. The third game on this list, Bad North. Now, I'm not Scandinavian. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly or not, but I played what I think is called the Jotun edition on Steam. Bad North is a game where you are controlling a mobile army and you're defending one island at a time from Viking invaders. You can have melee classes, a ranged class, they can have different abilities or items equipped. Admittedly, it is the weakest game on the list, and one of the reasons why I say that is because those things that I just mentioned don't have too much variety. So there's only a handful of items available. There's only the 3 classes to choose from: archers, shield users, and pikemen. But this is still a great game for teaching you about some strategy tactics, things that appear in all kinds of strategy games with combat. And I'll run you through situations to show you what I mean. If I have my archers, I can place them on the high ground and they can get easier shots on the enemy. Sometimes they have a height advantage and enemy archers below me don't even have the range to shoot up. So that's a nice element that verticality matters in this game. Also, the fact that they're on the high ground means that they're going to be protected from enemy foot soldiers. They have to find a way up the mountain or whatever defensive position I'm holding to try to get me. And that's where I put my melee units in front and they act as a sort of barrier for my archers. Also, choke points are a thing in this game. So I can take my spearmen, I can put them on the ramp that's only 1 tile thin, and the enemies have to try to get through my spearmen to try to raise the buildings on this island. Guess what? They're not going to be able to do that. These are really effective tactics, not just in this Bad North game, but like I said, in other strategy games as well. So experiment a little bit. Do what your intuition is telling you. If you want to hide from enemies' line of sight, go behind a building, go behind a barrier, and then come out and ambush them once they've crashed onto the island. Maybe it's to your benefit to always play up on the shore so that they can never even dock their boats in the first place. You will experiment and you will find what tactics work best. This game does have some objectively stronger tactics. For example, always include some archers on your team. Try to never deploy without archers, but you'll figure that out for yourself. This is a relatively short game, so on normal, you should be able to beat it in a few hours. I will say this though. If you are not somebody who's happy with the idea of losing commanders or losing units in video games, maybe you've heard about Fire Emblem where when your unit dies on the field, it's gone forever. And so people have restarted their maps to try to not lose any units. I did something similar here, not knowing if permadeath was a thing. It is and it isn't. There's an item that can actually revive a fallen commander. But what I did a couple of times was when I lost a commander on the field, I just quit out the game and then I replayed that mission from the beginning. So am I cheating? Yes, but it's cheating that's acceptable by so many other gamers. It is what it is. You know what? I'm just telling you that I did that so that you can do it yourself if you don't like the idea of losing units. So check out Bad North if you're looking for a more simple strategy game, but by no means is it a bad game. It's still a lot of fun. The next 2 games on this list are a couple of my favorite games of all time. First, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy Tactics A2 Grimoire of the Rift. A lengthy title, I know, but I have to mention some Final Fantasy Tactics here, and this is probably the easiest game in the series. So first you have Final Fantasy Tactics for PlayStation. That was remade as War of the Lions on the PSP. And then there's Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which I also really love. It's equal with this title for me. But I do find that this sequel, although unrelated in story, takes place in the same world, but don't worry, you can play them in any order. This one, like I said, is easier. So I think that this is better for beginners. And you know what? Because it's the latest and most modern game of the 3, you've got the most quality of life enhancements as well. So that should really please a lot of people getting into this genre in the first place. The Final Fantasy Tactics games take place in the wonderful world of Ivalice, home to all kinds of different species and cool creatures. In these tactics games, you get to play as a variety of different classes, a lot of them based on classic Final Fantasy, and also a couple of new ones introduced for tactics, and you get to customize your own army. The defining feature of the job system and of customizing your characters in these tactics games has to be with dual classing. And so the way that it works and how this job system operates is every piece, or I should say most pieces of equipment, house a particular ability or skill or magic. Same thing with the weapons. And when you equip your characters with a weapon and with a tunic, let's say, and send it into battle, it's going to earn experience points for defeating enemies. Once you've learned enough experience points, you will master the ability that was housed on that item. And then that ability is saved to that job's skill bank. So now if you want, you can equip something else and you can still use the skill that you just learned. The real fun kicks in with dual classing. So let's say I spent a few matches leveling up my archer and teaching it all kinds of different abilities. Once I have those abilities learned and mastered, I'm going to switch their class to the thief. And now I'm dual classing where I'm learning things on the thief, but I still have all these archer abilities that I can select from. I can do the same with a white mage and a black mage. And as is the norm with Final Fantasy Tactics, things get ridiculous. I can have a ninja equipping a different sword in each hand. I can have a sniper, which is the upgraded version of an archer, maybe imbuing his attacks with fire, ice, or thunder because he learned those abilities from a different class. So the fun is in learning all these different jobs, combining them to have job A and job B on your characters, mixing and matching abilities, and just taking over the battlefield like that. This is a game that you could easily sink a lot of time into as you discover all these things for yourself. Finally, the last game on this list, but certainly not least, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. And I really recommend Definitive Edition. You might already have a classic version of Age of Empires 2. Maybe you have the version from 2013, the HD version. But do yourself a favor, grab this one when it's on sale. You'll have so much fun with it. It looks beautiful, so many quality of life enhancements, and the tutorials and the achievements if you care about that. This game truly has an abundance of things to do and ways to play it. For beginners, especially those of you who are new to real-time strategy in the first place, don't be intimidated. Take a look at the tutorials, take a look at the early lessons. It teaches you everything from basic movement to growing your city, amassing an army, and how to fight. It'll even teach you a few tactics that are effective. And if you want to get a little more advanced, it'll give you a lot of tips on how to do things optimally. But you don't have to worry about that. If that's beyond your scope or you just don't care to, you can relax a little bit. You can play the campaign on the easy difficulty, or maybe you can go into a custom game, set it up where 7 computers are on your team and you're ganging up on 1 on the enemy team. Easy difficulty, standard difficulty, moderate, whatever. The customization options are limitless. Also, it's never a bad time to get into Age of Empires 2 in general because there's dedicated YouTube channels. The game itself gets a ton of updates and support from Microsoft Studios. So I can't say enough good things about the stuff that surrounds the game, but also about the gameplay itself. This has been right up there with StarCraft as my favorite real-time strategy game. I think I give the edge to Age of Empires because I've enjoyed it more with friends, and that's something else that I should mention, is you can have a lot of fun with your friends playing this game. Like I said, when you're ganging up on the computers, well, why not make it you and a buddy, or you and 2 other buddies? You can play the game casually and catch up with each other if you want. That's what we've done countless times. There's so much enjoyment to be had by trying out all the civilizations that are in the game. Of course, there's more with the DLC. I just have the base game, and I have a lot of fun with that. I grew up playing the Byzantines and the Saracens, 2 completely different civilizations, aesthetically at least, but also they play a little bit differently. I maybe wanted to use more mounted range units on the Saracens, whereas with the Byzantines, building a lot of walls around my base, and then constructing a few towers as well, so that anybody who was caught outside my walls would get shot down by an arrow, or maybe later in the game, crushed by a big cannonball. There's so many ways to play the game. That's what's so much fun about this in particular. But also, if you're someone like me, you're going to get a kick out of the map editor. Now that's getting into a different kind of topic, but I'm just going to say that the map editor is very robust and a lot of fun to mess around with. So, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, if you're looking for a real-time strategy game, look no further than this one. You can play it at your own pace, you can learn with this game from within the client, and you can explore all the content that exists on YouTube and elsewhere. And that is it. Those were 5 strategy games perfect for beginners. I'll have more in the future. I'll have other genres, like I mentioned. Hopefully you enjoyed the ones that I chose for you today. Let me know, have any picks on this list inspired you to get back into the genre? Have you never played a strategy game before, and maybe something here is enticing you? I'd love to know, and also if you have other recommendations, you may as well leave those in the comments as well. Thank you everybody for watching. See you next time.